Welcome back. All right, so news of the day today, and news has come out that we all kind of saw this coming, but for me, I'm particularly ready to be geared up for this. Ryan Miller played in Vancouver, and at the time he came to Vancouver, I'd honestly always viewed him as being a really good goaltender, had a pretty good year, but I thought he's kind of overrated though, and I thought that at the time. Then I watched him in Vancouver for a few years. Now I have a Ryan Miller jersey for Buffalo. I have a Ryan Miller jersey for Vancouver and a Ryan Miller jersey for the Anaheim Ducks as well. So that's how much respect I gained for Ryan Miller. Great guy, always very personable. I never saw any kind of complaining from him when things were going bad in Vancouver, and he gave the same effort every single night. And if they were losing 6-1, they were winning 6-1. You could not tell by how he was playing in net. He played just as hard no matter what the score was. So Ryan Miller has announced that he is going to retire at the end of this season. 390 wins he currently has, which has him number one on the list for U.S.-born goaltenders. 2010 was his big year. He gets the silver medal at the Olympics. He was also the MVP of those Olympics and of that tournament. And he won the Vezina that year for Buffalo. So it was a big year for Ryan Miller. So... yeah, I mean, this is a guy that we can start having that debate about whether or not they make it to the Hall of Fame. And I'm going to do a video at some point on the Hall of Fame. I'm going to do a video talking about everybody who's not in, that we can all discuss whether or not they belong in. And then the players who are currently in the league that might get in. And it's going to fill the board. And it's going to point out that because of the restriction on how many players make the Hall of Fame, it's really hard to get in. So I can't say whether or not Miller gets in. He'll get into the U.S. Hockey Hall of Fame. Absolutely, that's a done deal. So, yeah, all the best to Ryan Miller, and I think it's great. I do think that this is kind of seeing the writing on the wall that over the next week and a half of games for the Ducks, it'll be Gibson and Stolarz. Stolarz has got that backup job, so I think it's highly likely that he's already played his last game. But it's possible that the Ducks could give him one more game before the season's done, and just as kind of a send-off. And his stats this year haven't been fantastic, and it's obvious that it's probably time. But still, all the best to him. And, I have nothing bad to say about Ryan Miller. Again, before he came to Vancouver, I was kind of like, well, he's good. I don't know if he's that good. And then I saw him in Vancouver. I'm like, nah, he's a really good goaltender. So, a lot of respect for him. Carter Hart. So if you're a Flyers fan, and you wanted to see Carter Hart have some kind of turnaround before the end of the season, nope, done. He's out with an MCL sprain for the rest of the season. Carter Hart is really going to want to talk to Elvis Merzlikins about how to erase the season. If these two guys can come together and figure out a way to erase the season, I think they will. For obviously different reasons, but similar reasons. So maybe there's goalies can come together, create some kind of a time machine or that memory wipe device that you might see in Men in Black or Legends of Tomorrow. Maybe that kind of thing, and just wipe out the whole season. Hart, it's been a miserable year. I didn't put his numbers up there because it's been a year worthy of being forgotten, and hoping to come into next year's training camp healthy and in a better headspace and ready to go out there and win, right? So we'll see how things go for Carter Hart from here. However, this season is now done. The NHL has fined Matthew Barzal $2,000 for diving. I saw this morning and I thought, really, you're going to fine Barzal? Because I mean, watching games, there's a lot. There are some eye-rolling moments where I'm like, that was interesting. And of course, famously, I think it was Harry Neal that used to say it during games. You know, I'm not going to say he dove, but he pointed his toes before he went in the water. You know, the Russian judge gave him a 10. And yet that does happen in the NHL, where I'm like, wow, he barely touched him. That guy went down really easy. So Barzal is the first fine I've seen for diving in a while. So I guess Barzal's dive was more egregious than some of the others that I've seen. So yeah, $2,000. It doesn't do. It's not like you can get fined beyond this. It's not like you can get suspended for diving, which would be kind of funny. But at the same time, you know, this is Barzal. If you suspended a guy of his stature for diving, yeah, you'd have Lou would be making a phone call. So yeah, Barzal gets fined a couple of grand. Cole Lind's debuting tonight for Vancouver, and he's the latest hopeful savior. I say this because I watch as Canuck fans kind of turn, okay, this guy's going to be it. It's the Brandon Reed rule, really, is what I call it, where fans will get this idea that this player could potentially save things and salvage things. If you haven't heard of Brandon Reed, you're probably not a Canucks fan, but if you're a Canucks fan, you probably know who he is. If you played NHL 2004, he becomes a 97. He becomes so good. He's the best player in the league for a while. It's so weird. It's like, what? No. Anyways, so yeah, Lynn debuts tonight, and he's the latest in a line of this guy has to be in there. This could make a difference. I will say this, with this condensed schedule for the Canucks, they need to rotate guys in and out of the lineup because you can tell they're getting beat up. They're getting exhausted. This is a team that's been through it. And so, yeah, I'm glad to see Lind in there. Chatfield's going in on the blue line as well. They need to rotate guys. They need to figure this out. Because the biggest concern I have is injury, right? And injury that could affect October. So make sure there's no injury that's going to affect October. Speaking of injuries that could affect the rest of the season anyways, the Capitals. Ovechkin. And they're not saying a whole lot about it. Just he's missed 2 games. It looks like he's going to miss his 3rd in a row. Carlson, not at morning skate either. He'll be a game-time decision. The good news is Justin Schultz. His return is highly likely tonight. He's been cleared to play. It'd be very, very surprising if Schultz is out. Schultz is not in there when Carlson isn't likely going to be in there either. Of course, the big thing with Ovechkin is they always talk about the chase for Gretzky. And the one caveat has always been, as long as he can stay healthy, which he's very good at doing. He's very good at not missing games. This is what happens when you get older, though. It becomes more difficult not to miss games. It becomes more difficult to overcome some of the little minor nicks and bruises you get during the season. They become a little more of an issue. Father Time's undefeated. So hopefully this is something he comes back from before the end of the year. But again, that whole Gretzky watch thing, it really takes a hit if he starts dealing with injuries at this point in his career. So, and again, he's a UFA this summer. That could tell us the whole story too. What kind of contract does he want? What kind of contract does Washington want to offer him? I can't see him going anywhere else, although let's all be honest, it'd be great to see him in Pittsburgh, wouldn't it? Just one game of Crosby and Ovechkin on the same team. Just that would be just for the sake of saying, look, they're on the same team. Isn't that fantastic? So yeah, he's out for and of course Capitals fans are yelling at their monitors or their phones or their TVs right now watching this. I'm not saying it's going to happen. I'm just saying, as a hockey fan, I think that would be fun. So, Bowden, who has had an up and down season for Chicago, now he gets his chance. He gets his chance to prove that he can be a top 6 defenseman right now, with Adam Boqvist out for the rest of the season. So, Boqvist out for Chicago means that Bowden gets his chance. And I've heard it pronounced Baudin. I've heard it pronounced Bowden. I'm going with Bowden. That's fine. I don't care. I don't. Really don't. And Adam Gaudette is in their lineup tonight. He played a little under 8 minutes in his debut with Chicago, got an assist in that game, and Kurashev is the one being scratched to make room for Gaudette. So we'll see how things go for Gaudette with Chicago. And he's a restricted free agent this summer too. I have no idea how that's going to turn out. I don't know. Is it just a bridge contract for like $850K? If they believe in Gaudette, do they offer him $2 million over an extended like 3-4 years? I don't know. It all depends on whether or not you think last year's Adam Gaudette is how he's going to turn out, or this year's, because it's been a completely different Adam Gaudette. Speaking of players coming into the lineup, Quentin Byfield last night. So he was very impressive in what I saw of the LA Anaheim game. Byfield played 17 minutes and 57 seconds. 4 minutes and 20 seconds of that was on the power play. And he had 4 shots in the game. And that's not including the missed shots that I had on the board last night, where he was close and he'd almost get one and he just missed the shot. So Byfield looked fantastic. And again, this is really something that the NHL is going to have to look at, because that transfer agreement with the CHL is up at the end of this season. And looking at Byfield, it is an example of why it might be best to change that agreement a little bit so that junior age players can play in the American Hockey League. It has clearly benefited Quentin Byfield's game. He looked like he belonged. He is definitely a big physical kid, and he looked a lot better in last night's game than I thought he did during the World Junior Championship. So that's all you want. You want to see that progression, and to me, it definitely looks like it's happening. It's almost 18 minutes of hockey. So he is getting his opportunity, and I would expect by the end of the season, that's probably about his average is about 18 minutes, and he's going to get points. It's going to happen. Speaking of points, so Connor McDavid, and we talk a lot about the greatest. The greatest offensive player I've ever seen is Gretzky. And I understand that there are people who will make all these comments about how, no, by today's standards, Gretzky wouldn't be blah, blah. It's fine. Whatever. So the thing with McDavid is that currently he sits at 56 assists. Draisaitl has 67 points. He is second in the NHL in points. McDavid could be one of the first players in history, and Gretzky did it too, to have more assists than the number 2 player in the league has points. That was the level that Gretzky got to, where he had more assists than the next guy in the league had points. It was ridiculous. And McDavid can do it. I'm going to say straight out, McDavid can do it. If there's anybody in the league who can score 150 points in a season, it's Connor McDavid. It's difficult, and I know people are going to point out, well, he's playing against the North, and the teams in Canada aren't very good, and yada, 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 yada. But McDavid, when he's on, I really believe he can hit 150 points in an NHL season. And I honestly, I can't contrast and compare easily with Gretzky, because it's a 40-year difference. Like it's a completely different game now than it was then. And yeah, I mean, I will say McDavid right now is the best player in the game. I don't know that it's necessarily all that close, but I'll also say this. Auston Matthews, 35 goals. Matthews right now is likely the best goal scorer in the game, which is no offense to Ovechkin, but I think Matthews is probably the best goal scorer in the game. And again, Matthews had 35 goals. There will be those that look at it and say, well, that's against the North, which would ignore that last year, Matthews was right up there in the lead for goals in the NHL when we were playing a schedule where everybody played against everybody. And McDavid has led the league in scoring before. So they're both special talents. McDavid, of course, with 28 goals is also second to Matthews on that list, because of course he is. One thing with McDavid, again, where I can see the Gretzky comparisons, we talk a lot about McDavid's points. The goals don't get talked about as much as we talk about his just overall scoring, and that's a very Gretzky-like thing, where Gretzky could score 50 goals, and we'd be more focused on the points and the assists. And we'd be like, oh, yeah, that's his 50th. And you just start to kind of take it all for granted. And you just start to kind of shrug and go, yeah. He's got how many? Yeah, 45 goals. Yeah, that's about right. 55? Yeah, he's doing pretty good. And that bar just keeps getting raised. So I would expect that at some point in his career, McDavid may very well end up with more assists than the next guy in the NHL has in points. And that is remarkable. Again, that was what separated 99 from everybody else. And 97 is now doing pretty darn close to the same thing. And Wayne himself has said that, yeah, McDavid is of that same ilk, and he's talked about how special McDavid is. So, yeah, it's amazing. It's great to be able to watch him play, and I feel very fortunate that I'm able to watch him play. And yeah, so there you go. Let me know your thoughts regarding any of these news of the day items for today in the comment section below. As always, don't forget to hit like and subscribe if you're browsing your way through. You just happened upon this video. Thank you guys so much for watching, for all your support. I will talk to you again soon.